My name is Dale Parementeri. I'm Vice President of Operations of the Northeast Pennsylvania Industrial Resource Center. We are a 501c3 that helps specifically manufacturing sector, and we help them in continuous improvement, ISO certifications, growth, supply chain, workforce development, and technology acceleration services. Today's subject we're going to talk about is collaborative robotics, or Cobots. Many of you may not be aware of those terms, but these terms have become very popular in the last few years, and we're going to talk about that today and how they are useful in today's manufacturing facilities. I'm not sure what this slide would generate in your emotions when you take a look at this slide, but there's a lot of anxiety that revolves around automation and robotics. Many economic development professionals, elected politicians, and employers in general have a nervousness about taking jobs away from folks by using automation. But many of you may not have access to this data, but just Luzerne County and Lackawanna County alone, which is where we reside, where I'm at right now is in Luzerne County. We have over 10,000 open positions in our region. And this is not a phenomenon that is just here. It's actually national, and it's actually global. You may have heard a lot about supply chain and workforce issues on the news recently, and this is a real issue on both ends, and a lot of it has to do with workforce. So in today's business, a manufacturer, an owner, I am a former manufacturer. I have manufactured eyeglasses with my team for over 30 years. I did automate early on in the 2000s. I was an early adopter, was able to get access to digital technologies and things that some of my clients my competitors did not have, and my clients that they wanted. And I was able to adopt those early on and actually grow our business by putting in robotics, and actually inevitably was able to sell our business to a company at 7 times EBITDA because we did do these types of investments in our organization, and it was worthwhile for them to purchase our organization because of that. This slide is actually showing robots telling people what they should do or where they should go, and this is common anxiety, especially of an older generation of the baby boomer area where I reside. The younger generation doesn't tend to look at it that way, and I'm not sure how many of you in the audience would actually remember even the cartoon that's on the right. That's the Jetsons. It's a cartoon that was around when I was young, but even my son has seen it through TV Land and some of the rebroadcasts. But it basically showed how life was with all this technology that at the time did not exist, but believe it or not, today a lot of the technology that was in that cartoon actually exists today. Collaborative Robots 101 is basically what we're talking about today. Cobots physically interact with humans in a shared workspace. They're safe. One of the reasons they're safe is they use sensor technology, and sensor technology is quite popular today, and one of the reasons you're hearing about the shortage in semiconductor chips. Sensor technology is used heavily in cobots because cobots work along with humans, so these sensors are used to make them safe, so that if a person moves their arm in front of a cobot, it will immediately stop. And it's the sensor technology that actually creates that situation where that safety that we need when these work next to humans, and that's kind of why they are safe, and they are a little bit different than robots. Robots are often segregated, caged in different environments, and they are a little bit faster and don't require as much sensor technology because they are kept away from the actual people that are working on them from a safe distance. They're easy to set up, they're reliable, they're consistent, just like robots. They're consistent with the product that they produce in quality, and they're easy to program. You're going to see some videos upcoming that show how easy to program, and the fact that you can, if you have a smartphone, you can program a cobot. They're affordable. I will do a little ROI analysis for you on the cost and how quickly you can get a payback on a cobot. And they're also redeployable to different areas, whereas robots are usually stationary because of weight and size, and they're part of a production line. Cobots can be moved throughout your facility and redeployed to different tasks. Collaborative robots they interact with humans. The facility that I was in charge of and part owner of, we had a union, and when you have a union, obviously robotics is an issue for union jobs. And what we did first is we actually automated the dull and dirty and the unsafe positions. Those are the positions that the employees didn't want to do anyway, and by doing it, we actually created happier employees, and we were able to deploy them to other areas where they could add more value. So that's often a good place to start in your facility, is to automate those types of positions, because you're going to have less pushback, and folks will see how well they work, and that it'll kind of disarm their concerns. Safety caging is generally unnecessary with cobots. I had mentioned those sensor technology keeps them safe, so you don't have caging, whereas robots, usually there is some type of caging or something to separate the worker from immediately in front of the robot so that the robot is safe. Average payback period is 6 months. We have a statistic here from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, that human-robot collaboration is 85% more productive than either alone. So what that's showing is robotics and humans can produce so much more, and this is how we are becoming competitive with China, Indonesia, and other lower-cost labor markets, is because of robotics and cobotics can help us be more productive, even though our labor rate may be higher than some of those regions. The one thing that's very nice about them is they're redeployable. I'm going to show you a little video right here to show you how easy it is to program, and it talks a little bit about those sensors.
The following video demonstrates how to record a path using the OptiForce force torque sensor within minutes. Using the path recording function of the OptiForce hand guiding toolbar, any complex path can be easily recorded. Let's see how it works. Expand the OptiForce hand guide toolbar and choose from the available directions. Press and hold the Enable button on the OptiForce hand guide toolbar. Begin recording the path. Guide the robot on the required path and stop recording. Finally, save the path and play the program. With the help of the OptiForce path recording solution, you can create a program within minutes.
So what that slide's basically showing you, not only how easy it is to direct the cobot on what you want it to do, it also reinforces that you're directing the cobot. The cobot is not directing you, so removing any of that anxiety that some folks may have had with cobots or robots. These are some application examples that are perfect for cobotics. Screw driving, pick and place, machine tending. A lot of folks put collaborative robotic arms next to CNC machines to help load, unload, and even inspect. Welding, injection molding, assembly. This one, deburring and sanding and polishing. No one likes to do deburring, sanding, and polishing, so your employees will thank you for removing that task and using a cobot to do that task for them. Drilling, dispensing, painting, and packaging and palletizing. These are all applications, and if any of your facilities, you do any of these applications, you are a candidate for a cobot or a collaborative robotics. Why cobots? As I mentioned earlier, the Institute for Public Policy and Economic Development has told us that there'll be 10,000 open positions in the next decade. Well, this stat came out a couple of years ago, and I'll be frank with you, we're already there. We have 10,000 open positions just in Luzerne and Lackawanna County alone. And if you go to the larger region of northeastern Pennsylvania and out beyond that, the numbers are significantly higher. Increased global competition. One of the reasons that jobs are reshoring to the United States today, and this actually started back in 2007, we started to see an acceleration in jobs coming back to the US, specifically manufacturing jobs. And the reason is because robotics, 3D printing, a lot of these new technologies, virtual reality, augmented reality, they're allowing our workforce to use these tools and actually be more productive than we've ever been before. And when you do the math, where actually with these tools, we can be more productive than many countries that have lower labor costs than we do.
Increased customization and demand by customers.
Most companies, even Department of Defense manufacturers, are getting smaller sized orders, smaller batches, which requires more customization. The more customization, the more accurately you need to be to reduce your scrap rates. And that's another reason that using cobots or robots is important in your business. Reduce the potential, we mentioned this before, your workers' comp injuries. If you automate those tasks and you do that for your workers, not only will they be happy that they don't have to do them, you actually could reduce your workers' compensation costs and actually get better insurance rates by reducing those costs.
And most importantly with robotics and cobotics, is you can redeploy your employees to do more value-added tasks and actually be more productive for your clients and whatever products that you produce or whatever services you produce. This is a financial example of a cobot purchase. Now, at the top, you'll see labor costs are $18. That could either be your starting wage or that could be your starting wage with benefits. I prefer to look at things with benefits, fully loaded, but however you do it, just make sure you do it consistently the same way. This one happens to say 8 hours per shift, 3 shifts per day, 5 days per week, 50 weeks operating per year, 1 operator per shift. When you do that math, you come up with yearly costs of $108,000. And if you divide that with this annual labor costs times the number of operators divided by 12 months, you come up with your monthly running costs, and that comes out to $9,000 in this example. If you want to get your break even and net gain on your collaborative robot, collaborative robots are a lot less expensive than people realize. You take your robotic investment divided by those monthly running costs and you get your break even in months. This cobot happens to be listed at $35,000. I can tell you the cobots range from anywhere $5,000 to $50,000. You can go higher than that, but most of them are between $5,000 and $50,000, and most are $25,000 or less. One thing I will caution you is the additional hardware and services that come with the cobot. Speaking from experience, from someone who has automated a facility, don't go cheap up front. Buy those extra parts and services, because that's how you'll keep these things running. The most important thing about cobots and robots is keeping them running, and you don't want to be looking for parts. You want to have the parts on hand that you need to keep it running on a daily basis. Anything beyond that, you can get support elsewhere, but I would encourage you to buy the suggested parts and services up front. So in this instance, that's a $45,000 investment. And when you do the math, so in the first year, you actually save $63,000 by buying the cobot, and then it's cumulative after that. It's basically just adding $108,000 a year, and over the 5 years, the savings is $487,000, which shows you that the purchase of a cobot or a robot can actually make you money, can make you more productive, and bring money to your bottom line. Could a cobot be right for my organization? Well, if you're looking at a cobot versus a robot, cobots are perfect for high mix, low volume, which most manufacturing is moving to the high mix, low volume scenario. Robots, low mix, high volume, they're more applicable there. Lightweight product or tax, cobots do have weight limitations. Most of them cannot do more than 75 pounds, and most only work with 5 to 25 pounds. Robots obviously can handle heavier materials, can have conveyor lines, you can have a lot of things that are different than from an application of a cobot. Cobots move fairly slowly. Robots can move very quickly. May or may not require caging. Most cobots do not require caging. Again, that sensor technology to keep it safe. May or may not require caging. Actually, most robots have some type of caging, or the operator is somewhat segregated from the robot while it's in operation for safety purposes. Cobots work in any existing facility. I can tell you from my experiencing putting in traditional robots in the early 2000s, they were very heavy, they were 6,000 pounds, they had a lot of space. When I put the production lines together, I did actually have to do renovations to our building to make that happen. So there can be extra costs associated with robotic lines that you wouldn't find with a cobot. Cobots have limited reach, and robots could actually have unlimited reach if you're using AGVs, like automated guided vehicles, or something of that nature. You could actually have an unlimited reach. Common objections we get: the robot's going to take my job. But we've already talked about the fact that we don't have people for the jobs we have right now. So that one I think is pretty easy to put aside. I don't have the money to invest. We've shown that a Cobot can actually bring money to your bottom line immediately in the first year, or if not, in that example that I showed, that was 3 shifts. If it was 1 shift, you'd have your payback in 15 months. So that's still less than 2 years, which is still a good return on investment. We don't have anyone who can program a robot. You're going to see a video right after this that shows you that if you can program a smartphone, or if you can use a smartphone, you can program a Cobot. And we already talked about the financial implications.
Based in Nashville, Tennessee, Scott Fetzer Electrical Group manufactures a wide range of electrical motors and components in a constantly changing production environment. The company is now realizing a vision of having rolling robot colleagues help increase productivity and improve worker safety.
When I was brought into SFEG early last year, my goal or my task was to find ways to automate our factory, ways to make us more competitive on the global scale, ways to make it more advantage of the machinery that we had. One of our biggest challenges is we're a high mix, low volume producer. For most of our lines, they don't run every day. So trying to find a way to put robots on the lines in the traditional sense was a very big challenge. So we came up with the idea to do some sort of mobile force, but the challenge is, how do you do that with all the safety enclosures? I came across this idea of a collaborative robot, something that could work with humans, that you didn't have to be afraid of being around. When our workers come in the morning, their task is no longer to go do some monotonous task. It's to go take their robot and deploy it to whatever job it needs to do that day. And that robot's going to move all around our sheet metal department while it does that. The only way we were ever going to accomplish that was with a collaborative robot. When we looked in the marketplace, we only saw a couple of offerings. And to be honest, the UR was the only robot that we saw that we thought could do the job. It's got the speed and precision of a standard industrial robot with the ability to work around it with humans. We're trying to look for tasks that are either very monotonous, that are labor intensive, or potentially hazardous to do. And one of the tasks that we've automated is epoxy filling circuit boards for part of our transformer line. So that robot is actually part of our mobile fleet. So at the end of the day, we move it out. And then first thing in the morning, when we set the epoxy machine back up, we move the robot back in, drop a couple of pins in the floor, and off to work it goes again with no more intervention from the humans.
What we've seen with implementing the universal robots is about a 20% increase in productivity on the lines which we put in the robots as a result of having a pace setter with the universal robots working hand in hand with our people. We've seen the ability to get much more competitive when we go out and look for new business, and we can compete with anybody. We're bringing back business that used to be in China or that we used to source in China. We've been able to reallocate some of our employees to other areas where we've seen growth in our business. We're seeing about a 1-to-1 movement of people from where we put in a robot to allow us to move one person to another area of the business.
When the robots first came out on the floor, employees were very anxious and a little nervous about it. But now that they're out there on the floor, they act like they can't live without them. They are constantly asking, can we put a robot in this position? Could we maybe put a robot in this position? There's a lot of people who are trying to figure out where we can put our next robot to help our process. We have Thelma and Louise, who were, at first everyone was scared of Thelma and Louise, but she's actually a part of the family on the floor now. That's how they got their name. We were expecting it to go off the cliff, and she saved us, both of them actually. The process of the robots were actually a lot simpler than I had expected them to be. If you can work a smartphone, you can pretty much work these robots.
It was really easy to learn, and it went much smoother than I anticipated. I was a little antsy using the new technology with the collaborative, but it was really easy to use. I would say it took a third to half of the implementation time out of it based on the previous experiences I've had. You can actually read through Modbus TCP connections, robot status. We can pass information using the Ethernet socket connection to other software packages, collect data. It opens up a lot of doors to do a lot of things that we're just now beginning to look at.
We've got 2 robots working with humans. The first robot's actually cutting wires off of the motor field. That's a potential carpal tunnel syndrome application. I mean, you're cutting about 16,000 wires a day by hand. And so we thought that was a great place to put a robot, you know, let them potentially get carpal tunnel. And what really made this cell happen was the collaborative nature of the robots. Some of the future applications we have is we're looking at everything that we're designing now new and making sure that we can assemble it with a robot. So we're looking at all of our design work and saying, if we can't put that together with a robot, we've got to go back to the drawing board and try again.
Now that was the last slide, and what I liked about that slide, some key takeaways from that is, one, they got increased productivity as much as 20% just by putting in 2 cobots throughout their facility. They're redeployable. They can move them around their facility to do multiple tasks, and they're easy to program to do so. But what was music to my ears as a former employer is the group of employees get together every morning and plan out the way the work is going to go for the day. To get employees to do that culture is not the easiest thing to do. Speaking as folk that we do training for our clients in that area, to get that kind of cultural change by adding automation, I just thought that was really neat to see that happen. And as Make It in America folks, the fact that it's made them competitive enough now that they can bring back work from China and compete from here, that's music to our ears as well. So I hope that this presentation gives you some insight as to why cobots belong on the work floor in the manufacturing sector today, and that you are going to explore it and to go forward and look and take some of that anxiety out and start look at this and how you can put this into your facility and not only make yourself more productive, but also make your employees happier. Thank you.